In the early hours of October 7, 2023, 21-year-old Shuval Arizoni, a soldier in the Golani Brigade, prepared for another day of routine patrols along the Gaza border. But what began as an ordinary Saturday morning quickly spiraled into a nightmare that would test his courage, faith, and survival instinct to their very limits. As Shuval and his team drove out that morning, there was little indication of the horror that was about to unfold. They arrived at the Kisufim junction, just a kilometer from the border, and stood by their vehicle, unaware that within moments the sky would rain down death. At 6:30 a.m., the first mortars began to fall, dozens of them, every second hitting the ground like a relentless storm. Shuval and his comrades quickly donned their helmets and drove to the nearest shelter. Inside, they tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but the reality outside was anything but normal. The calm was shattered by a desperate phone call. "Come quickly, they're shooting at us. Our friends are getting killed." With those words, Shuval and his team leapt into action, racing towards the source of the gunfire. As they drove towards their comrades, a mortar hit a tank just meters from them. The explosion was deafening, but they pressed on. However, as they reached a crucial junction, Shuval saw something that made his blood run cold. Dozens of terrorists on motorcycles surrounding them from both sides. In an instant, the vehicle was hit by an RPG. The force of the blast sent them flying, shattering the windows and filling the air with smoke. Shuval looked at his commander, his face covered in blood, and realized his own ears were ringing, his hearing lost. Yet, even in this moment of chaos, Shuval's training kicked in. With no brakes, no gas, and smoke pouring out of the vehicle, Shuval knew they had to act fast. He swerved off the road, driving the vehicle into a nearby field, hoping to escape the deadly ambush. Shuval and his team dismounted, but they were far from safe. As they scrambled out, Shuval saw the terrorists closing in from every direction. With no way out, Shuval made a split-second decision. He opened fire. One by one, he took down the approaching terrorists, his survival instinct kicking in, driven by the knowledge that he was the last line of defense. With terrorists on motorcycles closing in from every angle, Shuval knew he had to act fast. His first shots were precise, taking down two terrorists who had gotten dangerously close, but the enemy kept coming, wave after wave. Shuval could see the determination in their eyes, but he matched it with his own fierce resolve. He had no choice but to keep fighting. Despite being outnumbered, Shuval's training and instincts kept him alive. He shifted his aim, taking down terrorists on motorcycles as they tried to flank him. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of gunpowder, the sound of explosions echoing in his ears. But Shuval didn't falter. He knew that behind him, the people of Ein Hashlosha and Kisufim were counting on him to hold the line. After hours of intense combat, Shuval found himself alone, hiding in a bush, his ammo nearly gone. 7 hours had passed since the attack began. He lay still as terrorists patrolled just meters away, oblivious to his presence. In that moment, he thought about the settlement he was protecting, the families, the children. He knew he couldn't give up. With only one magazine left and surrounded on all sides, Shuval knew he was living on borrowed time. Every movement, every breath was a risk. He heard the motorcycles approaching again, this time closer than before. Shuval's heart raced as he prepared for what he thought might be his final stand. He thought of the families in the settlements, the children who were just waking up for a Sabbath morning, completely unaware of the terror outside. Then, as if by divine intervention, a military vehicle sped towards him. Shuval, battered and exhausted, signaled to them, dropping his weapon and raising his hands. The vehicle screeched to a halt and 4 IDF officers jumped out, realizing they had found one of their own. Shuval was saved, but the battle was far from over. Without a moment's rest, Shuval was back in the fight. He joined a Maglan unit, moving house to house, searching for survivors, rescuing the wounded. The horrors he witnessed, families massacred, children killed, are things no one should ever have to see. But through it all, Shuval never wavered. House by house, Shuval and the Maglan unit fought to reclaim the settlement. In one house, they found an entire family burned and huddled together in their last moments. In another, an elderly woman riddled with bullets still clinging to life. The battles were fierce, terrorists had taken control of a tank, and the fight to neutralize them was nothing short of brutal. Shuval fought like a man possessed, driven by the horrors he had seen and the desperate need to protect those who remained. After hours of relentless fighting, Shuval was finally evacuated, his body broken, but his spirit unyielding. He had faced death multiple times, and yet, through what can only be described as divine providence, he survived. Shuval's story is not just one of bravery, but of a miracle in the midst of chaos. Shuval's courage and the divine protection he experienced leave us with one question. Do you believe in miracles? Or was this all just a coincidence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you were inspired by this story, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and consider becoming a channel member to support more stories like this one. Together, we can keep the miracles alive.